Sister Dorothy Stang was an American religious woman, a member of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. Those sisters, that community, is generally known here in the United States as teaching sisters. Sister Dorothy was stationed in the Amazon region of South America. She was in Brazil. She worked with local farmers who, by the way, were losing their farms and their homes to corporate loggers who would come in and cut down all the trees, bulldoze the land, and everything on it. She was certainly tremendously respected by the farmers. The loggers found her to be particularly a nuisance. In a telephone conversation with her brother here in the United States, sometime, I think it was 2005, she said to her brother, "I think that tomorrow they will kill me." She had, over the course of her ministry in South America, received numerous death threats. The next morning, as she was walking down the road to meet the farmers that she worked with and that she loved so deeply, she was accosted by a band of thugs with rifles. She recognized immediately what was happening. She spoke to them and said, "I know your weapons. Now let me pull out mine." She pulled out her Bible, opened immediately to the Beatitudes, and began to read as she was gunned down and left dead in the road. A young couple, very, very excited about being pregnant. At some point early in the pregnancy, were at the doctor's only to find out that their baby would be born with some severe disabilities. And of course, there was counseling from both sides. And that young couple chose to keep their baby and to accept the gift of life that God was giving them. A very, very well-educated and employed PhD, also a deacon, a permanent deacon in the church, gave up his very lucrative position so that he could stay home and minister and take care of his wife. He did so because she had Alzheimer's, and he took care of her even though she no longer recognized him. My dad, after his surgery for lung cancer, had to do those respiratory treatments 3 or 4 times every day. The respiratory therapist from the doctor, from the hospital, could get him to do them with great, great difficulty. At other times during the day, one of us who were visiting would try to get my dad to do those exercises. And the only one of us who could manage to accomplish that was my brother Herbert. Dad made up his mind. He wasn't listening to Mother. He wasn't listening to Wencil or Janice or Daniel. He really didn't want to listen to Herbert. One day I walked into the hospital floor, and Herbert was sitting outside Dad's door on the floor, and he was crying. And I supposed the worst. So I sat down on the floor next to Herbert, and I said, "Herbert, tell me what's going on." And Herb looked at me and he said, "He's my dad. I can't treat him that way. It's not right, and it's hard." And I said, "Herbert, you're the only one who can do it. You're the only one he's going to listen to right now. So thank you." And we cried together. And then we went back into the room, or Herbert went back into the room and started all over again. The readings that are presented to us today on this 24th Sunday of Ordinary Time are truly about suffering. Isaiah's prophecy, this is one of the suffering servant songs in the prophet Isaiah. And those suffering servant songs represent a tremendous shift and growth in Jewish theology. Because for centuries before Isaiah, suffering in the Jewish context, in the Jewish life, was seen as a punishment for being unfaithful. Yet with Isaiah, and there's some of this as well in Leviticus, with Isaiah and his suffering servant songs, suffering now has a far greater purpose than just being punished. Suffering becomes a service to God and particularly to God's people. And suffering becomes an opportunity to show faith and trust and confidence in God's guidance and direction. And that is what the suffering servant songs of Isaiah teach the people of God at their time. Jesus, in the gospel passage, says that unless we take up our cross and follow Him, we're not going to have what we all desire so greatly, and that is our share, our portion of the glory that is to come. So we have to take up our cross. Like Sister Dorothy sang in the Amazon. Like the couple who choose to carry their baby to term and then to care for that disabled child for the rest of their lives or the rest of the life of the child. Like the PhD who gives up that tremendously lucrative job so that he can stay home and minister to his wife, whom he promised to love in sickness and in health until death parted them. Like Herbert, who really suffered trying to help my dad heal. Each of us. Some of us were here last night until Dr. Alan Hunt finished at 10:45. p.m. And we're back here this morning. Some of us showed up at 8 o'clock and said, I'll just sit in the church and pray. Some of us got up earlier than usual and got the kids ready and got here for 9 o'clock. All of us, before the day is over, will be called upon to take up our cross and to follow Jesus. It's a different cross for everybody. It fits us individually. It fits us collectively. It's what we're called to do, to demonstrate the works that are the grounding of our faith, to demonstrate the faith that produces the works, to live the love we have for Jesus, whose love took him all the way through the cross and death to the resurrection. And he did that for us. Each and every one of us, all of us together. He invites us to take up our cross and to be the people that we are called to be.